Test, test, test.
Test, test. Do, 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 do. Yeah,
We are ready. Oh. Welcome to Smalltalk with Matt and John.
Hi, folks.
I'm Matt and he's John.
I'm John.
And yeah, today's show we're going to be talking about a new American Pope.
Yeah.
Jupiter.
Jupiter.
Maybe some other stuff like tooth fillings.
Tooth fillings. Maybe the Raelians. It's an interesting cult.
Yeah, the crumbling economy and
Crumbling
Generation
economy.
Z and the future of our infrastructure.
Yeah.
And other stuff. We don't know where this journey is going to take you. So thank you for joining us. And feel free to drop a comment in the live stream or later on in the YouTube video, and we will get back to you. And as we say, we are, we're not 247. We're not trying to puppeteer you. We are your puppets. So comment and give us feedback.
That's right.
Yeah, where do you want to start? Maybe with the breaking news about a new American
The
Pope?
new Pope. I mean, oh my God! Like, I do have to admit, I was rooting for the Pizza Bella guy. Just
who's that?
His name was Pizza Bella. That's all I knew about him. I thought that would be hilarious for me. I honestly knew actually my Pope knowledge is really subpar.
No, we talked about
the
bad popes. And we have Nick's Rolled here. Hello, Nick's Rolled.
Hey, Nick.
Thank you for joining us on another episode.
What do you think, Nick?
Yeah, drop in the comments what you think. But yeah, I think it was I think Pope Leo was not one of the favorites. I think there was probably Vegas and the betting economy has, prop bets and everything. I don't think Pope Leo was one of the major horses in the race, but I think the first American Pope is probably from the American perspective very especially given just the political climate, not just in the US but globally was I don't know, maybe the conclave, and I think it was part of the Pope. Part of it's interesting because it's just this institution that's thousands of years old and still operates the same way. So the fact that there's it's still democratic because it's elected, but it's all behind closed doors. So you don't know how that goes. So I don't know. Maybe you're curious. We don't know what right now. I think something the Catholic Church could do is probably modernize. They could do a whole HBO Game of Thrones series, just sort of behind the scenes. Episode of just the voting of a pope. It's a very historic moment, and nobody really knows what goes on. But
it's all the cardinals, and I can just imagine the smell of that place.
So I'm just curious how they make their decision, right? I think Pope Leo was in a role where he kind of interacted with the cardinals, so it's kind of I don't know. My perception is you have the elites of the Catholic Church, the cardinals, and all the global elites, kind of choosing from themselves who's gonna lead the church, and not only just the future of the institution, but also all the interpersonal relationships amongst the elite. So clearly, Pope Leo had a relationship then, and that's where like the Game of Thrones political aspect comes in. And
the one thing I know about popes is that if you want to be pope, you're the one thing you can't say that you want to be pope. You always have to be. I am so humble. I am a humble man. I don't want to be the pope. But I guess. But the truth is, they all want to be pope. Probably.
That's very interesting because at the highest level. It's a political institution, but so you're balancing the public and the mission vision of the church, which is Jesus, which essentially one of his quotes was give to Caesar what is Caesar's. So it's kind of the whole teaching of the Catholic Church is to not care about power at all. But then the Pope is kind of you're living that message while doing kind of calculations, and I don't know. It doesn't seem like Pope Leo. Was strategizing to be pope, but who knows? But I think even he was maybe a little. I mean, I think any human being that's elected pope is probably a surprising, interesting thing.
And it is like, what could they do? Like I remember Pope John Paul. He was the big pope. I remember he kind of helped out in the Cold War. He was this Polish pope, and that was a big thing. And it was like the Soviets had their big cloven hoof on Poland. And
I think I think Pope Leo in his initial speech, at least what I saw, he was actually talking about. He chose the name Pope Leo because one of the Pope Leos was famous for leading the church in the Industrial Revolution. He actually talked about artificial intelligence and AI. So I think it was really cool to see a pope that's clearly he's got his pulse on the current reality that not just the Catholic Church faced but humanity. So he's actually talking about AI. So it's cool because I think every pope brings their different spice and. It will just be interesting the fact that you have a pope that's grappling with AI. I think that's one of my biggest maybe complaints politically is there's just not enough politicians that even
They're even thinking about.
they're not even thinking about it. It's this thing that it's kind of the moment. Yeah, it's the biggest issue of our time, and it's coming very quickly. So at least the Pope is considering that. And I think I don't know. We'll see. So there was some debate online of whether he's from Chicago, so he's American.
Yeah.
There's some debate whether he was a Cubs or White Sox fan, and I think his brother came out and said that he was a White Sox fan.
Yeah. An interesting thing I heard about his brother is that the brother is kind of a mega slob.
Actually, I think there's
kind of like a right
reporting
wing.
that Pope Leo was a registered Republican, but apparently, from what I saw, you're not registered. It didn't mean he's registered, just that he voted for a Republican or something.
Okay,
But also there were some tweets that Pope Leo put out before he was Pope that he was kind of criticizing MAGA. So I think that's where I'm mentioning how much of the calculus of the church, knowing the moment, do they promote an American Pope to kind of be the moral leadership or the counter to the current American regime, or I think the previous Pope was the first one from South America, so I'm curious how they kind of grapple with the decision to
Now, also, well, this guy, our Pope, though, he lived in Peru, so for a long time, so he kind of has deep roots. Like, he is an American, but he also has deep roots in Peru and all that, which is pretty.
Yeah, I think he speaks Spanish, so he actually was born here, but he spent most of his life in Peru doing missionary work.
Yeah,
and he's also spent a lot of time in the Vatican, doing clerical work. I don't know what exactly that. What does the day-to-day routine look like if you work at the Vatican and you're not the Pope? You're just pushing paper around, or I imagine they have some giant library with like one of those 5-story ladders that is on
yes, and I would.
With ancient wisdom and ancient knowledge.
I am fascinated with the idea of the papal secret library where they have like old documents where I'd like to think there's cool secrets that they have.
There's probably layers, and I imagine there's bookcases that swivel out, and trapdoors and candlelit hallways, and secret passageways.
What was it? The movie something Angel or something. Let's not ignore Nick here.
Well, Nick was talking about a Chinese movie, so I don't know, Nick's world. Do you have any thoughts on the Pope? But he's talking about a new movie called Octonauts.
Octonauts: Crisis of the Tsunami.
That's why I'm curious what the Chinese perspective is on America, especially with the Chinese. I mean, what they're predominantly Buddhist.
Darn it!
You care more about the Dalai Lama.
Darn it! You know what? I work with a Chinese guy. I'm going to ask him. What do you think about that? I asked my other buddies, and they were like my Muslim buddies. They were like, "Oh, yeah, okay." It's like, "Oh, that's good." Then my one Muslim buddy, he's glad he's American.
Who's
he's
the
American.
leader of the Muslim institution?
I know there's different imams.
I know there's the Dalai Lama. Yeah, is there an imam, a head imam? I don't know.
There's Ayatollahs. There's Sunnis and Shias, and so some of them have imams. Some of
Does the Pope rule the Protestants? I'm pretty
no,
sure.
he does not. No,
Just
that's
just the Roman Catholic.
You
Church.
know, us poor put upon Catholics were put upon. We were prejudiced against because, especially Kennedy, because the prediction was Kennedy would have the Pope rule the United States. That was always a big fear.
Yeah,
I'd be afraid of that too. I wouldn't want the Pope ruling. That's
well, actually, somebody made some good points of. I think Donald Trump had tweeted that of him wearing the Pope wardrobe, but some actually pointed that he can't become the Pope, but the Pope could actually become president because he was born in the United States. So actually, Pope Leo, maybe we have to watch out for him. Maybe he's on some sort of power trip and will become.
That would be. Hey, you never know. Yeah,
that's me and my friends were having conversations of who is the 2028. What does that presidential field look like? Obviously, it's very early to speculate, but doesn't seem like there's any emerging candidates. Maybe Pope Leo does make a power play. Maybe this is the church's chance to gain relevance.
Oh, okay.
He's Pope 16, so Nick's world says he has nothing on the holiness Pope Leo. So he's Pope Leo the 16th, and I'm curious to see how they retread the names over and over again.
I think they pick them. The popes themselves pick them. They're like, I always like the Pope of Francis.
That's not, do they have a list of just a dozen names you could pick?
There were a lot of popes. I know they don't pick Formosa. That was the guy who they put on trial when he was dead. Nobody picks his name anymore. Or
I'm curious. Could you be Pope? I don't know. Pope won, could you start your own lineage?
Oh, great question. Yeah, why not? Why couldn't you do that? Yeah, why couldn't you be like Matt? I am Pope Matthew.
I wonder if there's any rules of that. But yeah, that was the biggest news I think. And I think last episode we talked about some bad popes.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I think I'm optimistic that this new pope. He's got the.
I would like him to come on hard and be like, we have to help the poor. We have to seriously be. Wouldn't that be incredible? Like we have to seriously put our religion to use.
He called for a ceasefire in the Middle East, which is amazing. The fact that you have a pope already calling, right? He's talking about AI and how we should grapple with it, and also, just the fact that there's a ceasefire, because I think there needs to be some sort of moral leadership, especially when you have all these countries fighting everywhere and starting wars. I think, and I do think in the age of AI and the age of the internet, and just it just feels in 2025 like our culture is kind of degrading. I feel like I'm optimistic that there could be some sort of moral renaissance.
That would be great.
Yeah.
The 60s were great because there was like kind of a moral renaissance, and there was drugs. Not that I'm promoting drugs, but there was like, you'd meet nice young ladies too, and people were more open and stuff, and better music.
Yeah, and I think that, just the TikTok attention span, and once people, kind of to the max Taylor Swift and TikTok things out, maybe they'll realize that there's a gaping hole in their own souls and go searching for deeper meaning. Because ultimately, we're just kind of numbing ourselves from the reality that none of us know anything about what's going on. And I think that's not that the church knows what's going on, but at least they provide some sort of foundation and code for dealing with our life here on planet Earth.
Yeah, I mean, some church stuff. I actually wish the church was more exciting. That's the one thing. Like, I'm all Catholic, but it's so boring.
That's why it's interesting. You have this 1,000-year institution that needs to stay. And I think this is the challenge all institutions face. If there are certain rules, regulations, primitives, or just certain procedures that need to be followed because it's embedded in the organization, but also they need to modernize. And I think you can't stick still. So definitely feels like the church, and at least in America, has kind of lost, and it just globally, right? When they were literally ruling the world in the medieval ages, and they've eroded power. They're still a powerful institution, but they're still they've lost some power. So who knows? Maybe the Pope could this new Pope could help modernize.
I would hate for us to become like the evangelicals, because that was just heinous, and the whole thing, the fact that we're messing around with little kids was pretty terrible too. We want to get away from that. So let's move away. I would say we should try to be more like Martin Luther King.
Yeah,
or
and Jesus, the original Jesus.
The original Jesus. Yeah. Far less annoying. Let's try to be, how about Christian, but less annoying Christians?
Yeah.
That's
the Crusades, the whole Crusades.
Yeah.
Yeah. No violence to preach our message. Just
no violence.
Battling with ideas.
Yeah, with ideas. We have these crazy ideas that we have. And,
love your neighbor. Don't kill people.
Yeah.
Don't lie.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, one of the other things I wanted to bring up was I was researching this week is Raelianism. Now, Raelianism was formed in like 1974 by this a race car driver named Claude something.
Okay, Raelian?
Not Raelianism.
I guess I thought of Israelianism.
Yeah,
it's different than that.
It is different, though. This guy purposely takes a lot of language from the Bible to push his religion. So he was this guy. He's a race car driver. He wrote about race car driving. He always kind of wanted more attention, and he was kind of like he's a musician who didn't do that great. He was a race car driver, which was only so. And basically, it's always going to be debatable, like whether he made everything up or not. But basically, at some point, he is taken aboard alien spacecraft.
Okay.
And there's a smaller green man. That was the way aliens were. A smaller green man with a goatee, told him he was Yahweh. Okay. And he took him aboard the craft, and he told him, Well, this whole secret is humans were made by these Elohim, which is a Bible reference. And he said, you are the only guy to be trusted with this, and go and spread the message. And so this guy, he then renamed himself Riel, and he became very popular in France because UFOs were a big thing back then. So he really took off. And at that point,
so I think that all the religions or ancients, they all came up with a creation myth because ultimately we didn't know. So the fact that it's all ultimately competing over who had the most believable but fantastic creation.
Now his was a pretty good one because it combined science fiction but with Bible stuff. But it's weird because they saw themselves as atheists. They are atheists. They're all about pure science. But then again, they have BS science too. Their idea is we didn't evolve. Humans and all life on Earth was created by our Elohim. They created in like a lab. Well, they cloned humans and they manipulated the stuff because they're so superior, all these Elohim. And we just have to
So we didn't evolve from some sort of primordial soup.
That's weird because in their dialogues, they put down science and they also put down religion. Like, the stupid mythology of religion. We are the pure science. But also, they put down actual science.
That's why I hit the whole dialogue. Why does it have to be science versus religion or these kind of counteracting forces? Why is there no... I feel like that's maybe the new age of... how do we blend those two? Because there's a need for both, right?
Yeah, I think we should pray to be smarter, pray to be better at science, and science could help cure priests from dying. And, so it's a two-way street. We try to, but not get each other's way. We don't tell little kids about crazy church stuff in schools, but the church people could go be maniacs. I think that's where
even the American ideal of separation of church and state is a pretty, especially when you're coming from the European model where the Pope and the Vatican is essentially it's a form of politics. So even just the American ideal of having these separate, politics and religion and separating those two, because I think part of the amazing thing of America is the idea that we have the freedom of religion. So you could be a Christian or you could be an atheist or you could be a Muslim or you could be a Scientologist or you could make up your own religion. I think that's one of the great things about the United States, just the ideal of the freedom of religion. So I think it's really important to have those two be separated out. So there's some comments from Nick's World, who's tending to anthems, Canadian anthems.
Yeah.
So he's asking us what we thought about Willy Wonka movie, which I don't know, I haven't seen it. Is Hollywood remaking a new Willy Wonka movie?
Geez. You know what? I like the old one. I haven't seen the new one.
I liked the my favorite. I think is the what are they? Not the little dumpling characters. The orange people.
The orange people. Yeah, the
purple pants. They've green,
and they're the workers. It's kind of it was a weird, creepy story.
That's great.
Oompa Loompas.
Oh yes, especially as I get older and just realize that there's lots of subliminal political messages in a lot of early media. I wonder, like you said, of the workers, is there some deeper meaning in Willy Wonka that we need to closely examine?
I know that in Wizard of Oz, there was all sorts of like political messaging put in that years later they realized like the Tin Man was supposed to be the industrious, the lion was supposed to be like government or something. They all stood for something. There was symbology, and I'm sure that maybe he did try to symbolize. I don't know if he's making like some type of statement on capitalism. I know he wanted to put down spoiled kids in that.
I've even just the idea that we're going to cast little people and paint them orange and give them green hair and make them wear white trousers.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. I just remember that, and just the scene. Where's the one boy that didn't he got really large? Just the fact that you had a bunch of children visiting the factory and they all slowly like died or like disappeared.
Yeah, and they didn't. The thing is, though, I think those kids died. They were like, I think at the end they were like, "Oh, those kids were okay." Like, I'm sorry, if you're in a tube of chocolate, that's not good.
Oh, it freaked me out too, and I think I don't know is Hollywood. I think that's one of my critiques. Ben, is we have all this technology, and Hollywood is just continues to remake, movies again.
Yeah.
And I think there's some movies that have been made 3 times now in my own life.
Yeah,
They must run out of creativity. I don't know.
Oh, I know. Like the Spider-Man movies have all been made, and my theory is they should remake some of these movies, but maybe some of the obscure ones, or that didn't hit, but maybe had a great idea. Maybe redo them.
I think redoing endings and exploring different story arcs.
Yeah.
Because why just copy paste a story? Why can't we have, for example, Game of Thrones, where maybe the Night King wins, but like remake it, but then put a radical bend on the narrative. I think I'd love to see more artists do that. The same way that when artists cover songs, I hate when artists just kind of copy the original song. Try putting your own radical, copy the song and the lyrics and the spirit of it, but put your own artistic flair into it.
Yeah. If they do it good. Yeah, that's the thing. I would like them, if they do that, they have to do it good. They can't be like, that was, just murder somebody's.
And coming back to the AI, I think there's been some radical, some emerging just in AI that if it's producing commercials, video, so pretty soon, right? If I'm a Game of Thrones fan, I'll just be able to prompt an AI to generate a Game of Thrones scene.
Yes. Yeah.
And actually, I could fantasize and prompt an AI to create an alternate ending where the Night King prevails victorious, as he probably, in my opinion, should have.
Yeah, that there's all sorts of things they should have done different with the ending of Game of Thrones, and I'm praying that George R. R. Martin finishes that.
I think he's going to milk it.
But milk it, but finish it before he dies.
Someone at this point, we don't need to. We could just have an AI. Just somebody prompts an AI to finish George Martin's books.
See, the thing is, though, then somebody would be ticked off at that. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm sure there's.
Yeah.
I just think even just coming back to the Walt Disney prompts, just how far we've moved in our grandparents' generations of a decade or a generation ago, you had literally Disney employing an army of cartoonists that sat there and wrote paper cartoons one by one, and then did a manual. So it's just amazing that maybe in our lifetime we'll have the idea, but we'll all have essentially Hollywood studios at our fingertips.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you can see stuff on streaming media, all sorts. They make amazing art, and this year,
how was you're doing the infringement?
For infringement, I'm going to have the theme is going to be artists versus AI. So artists out there, Nick's World, if you have any art up there, maybe you can put it in the show.
And I also did. I ended up putting a submission into the infringement festival.
Cool.
So I am doing a live coding.
Have you heard from them back yet?
No, I think they take a while to kind of. For those that don't know, infringement is I think it happens all over the place, but Buffalo Infringement is essentially a kind of decentralized festival of art, creativity. There's literary, music, multimedia, and anybody that can. Essentially, they let anybody in. There's no bar to entry. I put a submission in to do a live coding and also with some, vocal performance.
Yeah,
so
that's cool.
We'll see. Maybe I can be the first and make history and not be accepted, but I'm hopeful that I'll be able to perform. And I'm looking forward to your Artisan AI because I think it's very relevant.
I think it'll be fun. Yeah, hopefully I could get a lot of people involved.
Well, I think an AI art infringement event just attracts a certain tribe, and I'm excited to I think part of the infringement is just introducing and meeting people that you wouldn't know and people that have similar interests because it's a really cool kind of artist run. I'm
going to have to try to figure out a way of contacting artists, and we don't have. Unfortunately, we don't have Art Voice anymore. That was such a great way of contacting the community.
Yeah, just a newspaper. Yeah, I think that's been one of the troubling things. Just the deterioration of local media, like you're saying, Art Voice, which had a very specific niche.
Yeah,
it was important. It's very hard. Even the Buffalo News now is like this dying, archaic thing that's just extracting resources from the readers and behind paywalls. So we have Nick's World with a comment. Any thoughts on the show I rediscovered?
What was that show?
Disney's Sheriff Kaylee's Wild West takes place in the western town of Nice and Friendly Corners, and it teaches some lessons in friendship. Interesting. I'm
Oh, wow.
unfamiliar, but I think I saw on TikTok that actually Japanese people are becoming obsessed with Wild West culture.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, and I
Good
could
for
imagine.
them.
Even when I taught in Poland, there was some interest between the students of Wild West and cowboys. I think I don't know, from a European or Japanese perspective, I could see how they'd be fascinated by it because they really don't have right. It's part of our American story, but they really it's a type of it's just not. They don't really have anything to relate it to their own culture, right? The whole idea that we had these cowboys and Western pioneers.
Well, I know
Indians, and the fact that there's already people here of a different culture. So I don't know. And I even remember growing up, just seeing the old 40s shows, and that was very, cowboys was a very popular thing depicted in media. You don't see cowboys depicted in American media anymore.
I grew up. I never liked the Cowboys. That was something that never got me going as a kid. I always kind of like to me. It just seemed. I never played Cowboys and Indians. I was more war and stuff like that. I never felt like I actually I'd go down and say I'm anti-cowboy.
Really?
Yeah.
In third grade, the rage was the computer game Oregon Trail.
Oh,
And it's interesting that was such a popular child's video game. The idea of the actual Oregon Trail consisted of lots of death and misery and violence, but also exploration. So this idea that was depicted as this we're a family in a cart. I don't know. It was that's my earliest depiction.
I know there's a video game called Red Dead Redemption, which is kind of like parallels the video game I play, which is Ghost of Tsushima, where it's a real you're in the Wild West, and it's really immersive, and there's side stories and stuff like that's the game I'm playing right now is Ghost of Tsushima. Oh wait, have I ever talked about that yet?
No.
Oh, Ghost of Tsushima.
Is it a video? Is it a video game? On what platform?
It is a video game, but it's much more. It's about Jin Sakai, and this is the thing. Yes, I start out as a samurai, but then I become the ghost. So it goes through this transformation of also too, they get on your case. You kind of lose your honor because you're in ancient Japan. The deal is, according to this game, you're not supposed to run up behind people and stab them. But guess what? That's the only way to win. You got to run up behind people and stab them. Now, I think in ancient Japan that was okay too, but in this game, your uncle's like, whatever you do not run up behind somebody and stab them or poison them. So, but the thing is, guess what? Ghost of Tsushima, there's a lot of that. And then I become the ghost. And because guess what? You know who I'm fighting?
The evils people? The spirits.
Mongols.
Oh, Mongols.
Mongols.
Did the Mongols make it to Japan?
Oh, they wanted to. This is the thing. They did. They got to
That's
Tsushima.
interesting. Mongols versus samurai.
That happened. They wiped them out at first. There were skirmishes. They told them. They said because the Mongols were freaking horrifying. They were sweeping over Asia, and they sent envoys to Japan, and they were ready to wipe out J-Town. They did attack Tsushima at one point, but have you heard of the kamikaze?
I'm familiar with the kamikaze pilots in World War II. But I know it was an ancient Japanese warrior philosophy, right?
It started out, the Japanese got lucky because they sent an armada, and at some place it's called the Divine Wind. And boom, those Mongol bastards got sent to hell by these Divine Wind. Like basically, there's an armada that got wiped out. But there's also, that was part of it, there's also some combat going on. You know what? I should be more prepared for this. But I know also...
I would imagine the Wild West cowboy culture to Japan is the same as samurai cultures to the United States. It's kind of this fascination of it so peculiar.
There were Ronin, which were wandering warriors, which are actually very dangerous and creepy to me. But I guess...
Were they just rejected samurai?
They're samurai without a job, without a leader. And they...
Did they get excommunicated? Willingly or unwillingly? They're just...
There was a period of time where samurai thugs in same year knights or like mercenaries,
they weren't fully organized behind a centralized.
Yeah, these were just guys with swords. I know they pop up in there were Ronin pirates in Indonesia,
I think there's
who are like the worst guys.
there's the quote. You'd rather be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. I think that's a pretty profound.
Warrior in a garden.
You'd rather be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. Essentially, it's kind of right, the idea that you should be tough and you should be able to defend yourself, because it's better to be able to defend yourself and not need to than to have to defend yourself and not be able to.
The fun thing though with the samurai, they got into having culture. It was at a certain point, once they were basically Nobunaga. He established. He became the emperor, and he had to do something with the samurai. And that's where they started. They would recite poetry. They would read poetry, and they would do poetry. They would
Warrior
do arts.
poets.
They would do flower arranging, which was a very cool Japanese art. So they didn't have the American tough guy thing going on.
Yeah.
Or the Western, like, you have to be an asshole, like a dumb.
Right, American cowboy culture. It's all about this, the American
Yes,
kind
the
of
stoic.
Well, it's part of our psyche of the rugged individualism, the idea of a single person. I think that's why I think Japanese culture, from my perception, right, part of samurai and Japanese culture is like, especially in the East, my perception is that like the culture is much more about collectivism and about how one person, how you kind of serve the family and the family serves the society.
Yeah.
Whereas I think they admire our culture because we're kind of almost the inverse of, we celebrate individuals.
Nothing's
more individual than the cowboy. Literally, a person that just decides you're going to go out and just do your own thing and be a cowboy.
Yeah. But it's cool though, but also too the amazing idea, like taking your family in a wagon and you're going to go
with all your life, and
do a farm and make a farm
somewhere. You're not sure where you're going. You're just going west. You have a creaky wooden wheel.
Yeah.
But then you have an ox.
Yeah.
You just have an ox that's just carrying you.
Yeah.
In your whole family, and it could get sick.
Oh,
or
maybe
die.
next week. Okay, darn it, that's going to be next week. We're going to talk about a fun thing called the Donner Party.
Oh,
that's a fun thing.
It's been another thing it's been remade into a board game. Isn't it a board game now?
Yeah, I'm sure it is.
I think it. Yeah, I saw it recently that it was a board game, but it's also very. Yeah,
But
and I think we like to scoff. Like, I don't know. I think it's people that haven't experienced the Donner Party, or essentially was the short summary is that it was just a family that ended up cannibalizing themselves.
Yeah,
I think.
But it was more than just a family. It was like a caravan where like certain things where they screwed up. Like there were bad decisions made. Like some of the people made it, but like some of it was like there is a whole story of like the leadership guys just screwed things up, and they ended up like in the winter, like caught in the mountains, and they just missed out on things, and then starvation, more starvation, depravity, cannibalism. So
interesting. Yeah. Did anybody make it out alive?
Some of them did. Yeah, some of them did. And some of them definitely did. But there were ones that didn't cannibalize, or ones that did cannibalize. And I know one of the typical things, the first people that cannibalized were their Indian guides, or they tried to, which is typical. Okay, I'm sorry. If you're an Indian out there, I want you to, Indian or any other ethnicity, watch out for guys.
But then it's also interesting because some human cultures, cannibalism is like part of the culture. So it's just interesting how human beings in culture, we have the ability to either the same act view it as gross or as completely normalized, all based on kind of the culture. Because
it was pretty horrifying. But also the Indians were horrified by that too, because they were like, they were like, oh, that wasn't part of their culture. They were like, oh wait, they want to do that to us. And
I can imagine. Yeah,
there was more nuance to the story, but yeah.
Well, I think it's just kind of it's an interesting story, and I think it's easier for an outsider to just scoff at the cannibalism. But I think human beings have a really amazing idea, like just instinct to persevere and survive no matter the cost. And I don't know. It's interesting to think. It's kind of hard to if you were starved, some of the things people might do to survive, because ultimately when your choice is either eat someone or die. I don't know.
We're so lucky that we've always had full bellies. We've always.
That's why I'm interesting too. I think even with the rise of AI, I saw a teacher on TikTok talk about how they were quitting teaching because the children are just illiterate now, because essentially they don't really have a foundation in math or reading, and they just ask AI to do its homework. So it's just interesting, and I think I saw a graph of, I think it was a poll of Gen Z, which is, the newest generation, the youngest generation, of their careers, right? I think a question you always ask kids of, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I think this pie graph was essentially, the whole pie graph was like YouTube influencer, TikTok star, video game live streamer. So I think right, all the kids just want to be social media video stars, but then at the same time, our infrastructure is crumbling. So I have the joke with my friends of Gen Z is going to rebuild the infrastructure, which is, I say it as a joke because they're not. And one, they're going to be illiterate, and two, they have no interest in it. So I think, it's interesting because, you have AI, and I think automation is going to be a big thing, but then there's certain things like plumbing, right? It's kind of automating plumbing and fixing, broken plumbing pipes is like way far off because it's a very nuanced job. You can't just copy paste.
The thing is though, I mean stuff like that. Yeah, I would say kids, learn a trade, be a plumber, stuff like that. But also too, like me in my factory, there's a lot of automation, but somebody has to run those machines too.
Yeah,
the automated
be
machine.
A technician of the machine. But we have Nick's rolled here with. Talking about Mandy Moore, who was the voice of Sheriff Callie. He also mentioned a bothersome kangaroo rat.
Interesting.
It's shooting up the town. It's interesting. I actually found a groundhog in my 1977 Dodge van engine.
You did?
Yeah, my dog was barking, and then I opened up the hood, and there was a groundhog.
What was it doing in there?
It was like kind of just. I think my dog scared it up there, so it was kind of like. Just kind of, fighting for its life, and then I kind of let my dogs on it, and it was hissing and growling, and then I brought my dogs in because I didn't want them to get scratched, or they would have killed it.
Yeah, I'm pro groundhog. I know a lot of people aren't.
I think they have their utility, but they can be. They're in an urban setting. They're generally a nuisance, not welcome. But I think they have right. They let us know they're. Essentially amateur weatherman once calendar years. They do have their utility.
Well, I always like the idea that in the winter they're in their little burrows, burrowed underneath everything, just sleeping the whole winter.
Yeah, which I think that's a concept I love to see humanity explore, is actually build underground housing. Because if you build things underground, or if you, instead of building structures up, you go down, actually you can save a lot on heating and energy, because the actual thermal mass of the earth, if you went down, you could tap into the thermal energy of the earth rather than beating up and then heating your buildings.
Well,
with
your
gas.
folks have geothermal.
Yeah, and that's the thing is,
it's cool.
Once you go, I think it's 42 inches is the frost line. So once you tap in under the frost line, essentially it never freezes. So you could actually, if you built structures down, you could actually be more resilient. I think, too. I don't know. I think it's a concept that I think other societies have had.
Yeah.
I think the Scottish, they build like sod huts, like they use just old mud.
Yeah.
It's interesting because we just kind of have modern homes and plywood, but like I think that's part of the human experience that we got missed out on, is actually constructing your own home with your hands. Felling wood and.
I always wanted to do that. I mean, I saw a pod too. He built a wing out of the house, on our house. My next door neighbor down the street. When I was young, I saw him. He built like a large part of his house. He just like sitting there, hammers and nails.
Yeah, I think now we have permits. I think there's a joke going on social media that I think recently there was a news that there's this Riverline trail that they're trying to build a hiking trail in the city of Buffalo. Mm-hmm. It's like 1.5 miles. They're going to raise $100 million to build it. And it's like, when you think about all the permitting and bureaucracy of the fact that it costs $100 million to build a hiking trail, like what is there to...
that's insane.
It's just... I'll never forget on COVID when, I think it was Channel 2 or, you're watching... This was before COVID hit, and they just showed the Chinese... There's 1,000... little forklifts working like little bees, and they were constructing a hospital in like a week. And I was just blowing my mind, because my only experience of like the government construction thing is when you see a bunch of like a dozen construction workers just all working at watching one person like work at half speed.
Yeah.
So just eye-opening of, we have so much permitting and bureaucracy. Like I think you couldn't actually add an extension on your house because you would need to get approvals and contractors, versus just 2 generations ago, right, you could just, I'm just going to build
Yeah.
a room on my house, and it's my house, so I can do it.
Yeah.
And just think about, 500 years ago, you didn't really need to ask permission to build your structure. It was just part of the human experience.
I heard California is insane with like stuff like that. Like you really, that's just like you can't do anything.
We're gonna. I think it's funny with the Bills Stadium. This will be the last year at the Bills Stadium, but they're actually constructing the new stadium. And it's like the only construction project we have in Western New York is the Buffalo Bills new stadium, and people are like tweeting about it. And it's, I don't know. It's just, you realize that nothing else is really being built. I mean, I think I have a lot of friends that are advocating for, a rail system in Buffalo, and actually the city of Buffalo has like this belt line, this old rail line that goes around the city. So we actually, you look at maps of streetcars and stuff that we had 100 years ago, and now we don't have that anymore. So it's disappointing.
I wish they would build a new Peace Bridge or a better Peace Bridge. But
That's something I've actually that turnaround ramp there is actually, it used to be an Olmsted Park. So actually, when you drive on it too, you see that is like a premier view of the vista of Lake Erie. Now it's just it's a bridge.
But that's one thing that drove me nuts, because I think years ago they were going to do something, and then they made some study, and I thought it was BS. Is that some bird, it would like hurt some bird if they built this bridge? To me, that still makes no sense. There was some bird that it would upset its habitat. I forgot that. I don't know if other Buffalonians remember that, but to me, it just sounds like, how is that going to hurt the? Yeah, couldn't it fly around the structure? To me, it was like, it was like, you're just going to stop right there. You're just going to hear that. You're not going to chill.
Life is a trade-off.
Yeah.
Right. So some other species, I'm sure, is affected, but I think just knowing the history of that was actually a Olmsted Park. That front park was a premier park right on the waterfront. Because whenever you're driving, you just see what a great vista it is, and that land seemed to be much better as a park instead of a bridge. You could move the bridge down. But here's a question: Did you hear about the explosion in Lakeview yesterday?
Wait a minute, I heard about that. What was it?
Did you hear it?
No, I didn't. I've heard buildings blow up before, where I'm like, oh, somebody died. Did somebody die in this one?
So right now, one person did pass away, and another person was taken to the hospital.
Was it drugs or?
So essentially, there was this explosion. The house is obliterated. The house no longer exists.
Yeah.
And then I saw some clips of the house next door was on fire. And putting on fire is an understatement. This thing was like emblaze in a raging inferno. It was, so it was, and I guess it happened in Lakeview.
Yeah, yeah.
And I guess from 911 calls, people heard it for miles. There's miles and miles.
I must have been at work
last night, or is it last night at 8:50?
I would have heard that 8:50.
Or maybe you're too far away.
No. Maybe. I was at home. I was watching my cat interact with my next door neighbor cat.
Clearly, it was some sort of gas explosion because I don't know. I think the only thing I can compare, there was a warehouse in 1983 in Larkinville exploded. It was something with a propane tank. Some forklift was moving a propane tank.
I remember that. I remember when I was young, I heard a firecracker house blow up, and I was like, somebody died. And at the end of Monpas Street, a house died. And Wait, hello, Matt John. My news is ready.
A meth lab at the end of Grandma's Street.
Yeah. Oh,
with a VW bug van.
Have you heard this?
So we have Nick's World, the pesky kangaroo rat. Have you heard that Lilo and Stitch is about to be live action?
Oh yeah,
I've not heard that. Lilo and Stitch. That was
I put that in other category of why. It's like a live action. Why not just make a good cartoon?
What is live action?
Well, they have they'll have an anime Lilo and Stitch, I think.
Okay, why not? I feel like if we're just retreading the same ideas, we should remake Lilo and Stitch into live action.
But I don't know, but Disney really does suck. They really just don't have good ideas.
I'm also curious about the pesky kangaroo rat. What is a pesky kangaroo rat? I'm familiar with kangaroos, and I'm familiar with rats. But I'm not too familiar with a pesky. I can imagine that a kangaroo rat would be pretty pesky.
I think they have cute tails. They have long tails. They're like
I know last week we debated, could 100 humans beat one gorilla?
Yes. Okay.
Here's a question: Could 10 humans beat a kangaroo?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Are you sure? Because I know kangaroos, they have extreme kicking strength and power.
I think 10 humans. Well, okay. I rewatched. Okay, I've changed my minds on the humans versus gorillas based on a YouTube video I saw where they said, yeah, gorillas will mess you up, but they don't know how to use their strength. They could rip your arms off, but they mostly just bite. And so anyway, but I'm against the whole fighting a gorilla, but they said humans could do a lot better.
I think the general consensus that I saw was that the 100 humans would eventually wear out just by sheer numbers.
Yeah.
Eventually, the gorilla would right. And humans, our unique ability, right? We can run marathons. We can do endurance.
Yeah.
So if the humans would out endure because there'd be 100 of us.
They were saying like there's a whole different, like the muscles are like an animal's like they're super explosive, but then they just tire out.
Yeah. So I think their lactic acid would build up and they get tired.
Oh,
But the first dozen humans would be carnage. I think that was.
Yeah. I'm against fighting animals. Okay. Here's another subject. I know we were all talking about this. Everybody talking about it at the water cooler. Jupiter.
Oh, Jupiter.
It is the third brightest planet in the sky.
It's very large. It's a very large planet.
You know what? I love Jupiter. I loved it since the Pioneer spacecraft.
I love it too.
Pioneer spacecraft, when I saw it when I was a kid, and it was like new. It was just like all of a sudden it was like this new like stuff they'd never seen about Jupiter. Like they knew about it. They knew from Galileo. That's where
there's something going on with the massive red. Isn't that red dot just a massive storm?
Maybe somebody's fighting a dragon. Maybe there's two dragons fighting each other or a wizard. We don't know.
Is Jupiter? The crazy thing to me is that some of the planets are just gas. They're not even solid. Is that so? You couldn't actually stand there because it's just a giant ball of gas.
I know when it gets deep down inside weird stuff, it's gas, it's fluid, it's hydrogen and helium, and there's like giant electrical storms, and magnetic. It also has this massive magnetic aura around it, like a radiation belt.
That's crazy because right. I think Elon Musk right. Even right now, our most visionary person is talking about going to Mars, but. What about Jupiter and even Saturn? There's just a ring around it. I would love to see a live stream. What's going on? I
think
Jupiter?
It's Ganymede. I think they think I think they think there's two moons where they have water underneath, where like something fun could be happening on there. They have Io, which is like a friggin' hot mess. Don't go to Io. Io sulfur volcanoes. It's like it's constantly sulfur volcanoes, and it's just spewing all over the place. It's disgusting.
What do you think about Pluto? I was at the generation where Pluto was a planet. We were indoctrinated that Pluto's a planet, and then all of a sudden it wasn't a planet.
I'm pro Pluto.
Do you consider
it's
Pluto
beautiful.
a planet?
Not at this point.
Because it turns out, I think the theory was that because there's other small rocks, and because it's so far away, it's
considered part of like I think the Oort cloud or like the Kuiper belt. It's considered like one of the larger Kuiper belt objects. You know, Neil deGrasse Tyson has a good reason why it's not a planet.
But there's Venus. Just the fact that even Mars, Mercury, there's all these planets that are just completely different chemistry, different sizes, different colors. There's just, and we don't really know much. We just look at it through a telescope and make observations. But what's it actually like to be on Jupiter?
Oh, on Jupiter. Well, oh my God. Well, first off, you'd be falling in there's giant storms.
There's lots of gravity too.
Lots of gravity, and there's. It looks like a painting that's always moving, and like okay. Oh, this is the thing. It's huge, but a day is 11 hours. It's 11 times. It's like there's like 1,000 Earths in there, but it's whizzing around. So it's going real fast. So there's winds, are super high winds. It's insane weather.
Huh.
So it's 11 Earths wide.
Actually, I saw a TikTok too that was talking about this guy that kind of he buried himself, but he just kind of isolated himself with no contact in the outside world. And is it circadian rhythm like actually started like getting expanded? So the whole idea of our 24-hour day is only because we have 24-hour days. So it'd be curious that I don't know. It just essentially showed that perhaps our 24-hour cycle is just based on the fact that we have 24 hours. So maybe if we were on Jupiter, maybe the 11-hour day, we would just adapt.
I wonder what insane. I know, well, the radiation's insane. But But yeah, geez, what would happen? I don't want to find out.
I'd love to find out. I think it would be cool.
Yeah.
Somebody should find out. The AIs or the.
Yeah.
We need to make AIs the size of tardigrades and
Yeah.
then shoot them at
Yeah.
nearly the speed of light so they can go investigate.
Yeah, and oh my God, but there's a ton of moons there. Not as much as
Aren't
Saturn
there,
right
aren't there
now.
moons bigger than Earth on Jupiter?
Nope. There's one's bigger than Mercury. I think that's Ganymede or something. I think Titan's bigger than Mercury. Yeah, Mercury, no bigger than Earth ones. There's some pretty big ones.
Huh.
And
Jupiter's largest moon is Ganymede,
good old Ganymede.
which is also the largest moon in the solar system. It's even bigger than the planet Mercury. You were correct.
Yep. And then there's Callisto. Those
Low
are the
Europa.
Galilean moons.
Oh, Io, Europa, and Callisto.
Yeah. Now that was amazing. Or what was his name? Galileo. This is insane. He didn't invent the telescope, but what he did is he improved it. He made a really good telescope, and he was the first guy to observe Jupiter and be like, "Oh my God, there's 3 dots going around it." And then he discovered there were 4 dots moving around, and then that was one of the breakthroughs where it was like, "Oh, geez, these moons are rotating around. These are other moons
I feel like
rotating
I
around
even-
the planet."
Yeah, I haven't even seen this
Yeah.
too. I don't know.
Yeah.
How would you even see these things? Because
We could right now. We could see it with a telescope, with an off-the-shelf telescope that doesn't cost too much money. We could watch these, and we could also observe the weather of Jupiter, which that's the only planet that we could. Like amateur people, they could take pictures of like the bands going around and stuff.
just
And,
a wild.
Yeah.
There's got to be life somewhere, even in our universe. There's got to be bacteria in a petri dish or something.
They're saying that they have salty liquid oceans that are heated, like under all that ice. Like who knows what's going on in there?
Holy Lord! So there could just be because they have underwater.
Yeah,
They have water there. In the oceans.
salty water, which is like to me, it's like, could there be like things we could eat in there and stuff?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, and oh my God. But I just like the moon. There's dozens of moons zipping around there, and it can carry. There's Trojan asteroids that it's carrying in its Lagrange points. This is a fun thing. This is something. All planetary bodies have Lagrange points.
What's the Lagrange point?
It's this Texas town. No, it isn't. No, but anyway, yeah, it is. A place called Lagrange, but they're like places of gravitation, which are like perfectly between the sun. There's 5 of them around every planet. One is perfectly between the sun and say the Earth. The one is like trailing us, and it's like we can pull stuff along with our gravity, and one is in front of us. And it's like there's these weird like gravity wells where things will just float. Like
It says a Lagrange point,
Yeah.
also known as L points, are specific locations in space
Yeah.
where the gravitational forces of 2 celestial
Yeah.
bodies balancing the centrifugal force of a third body orbiting them.
Yeah.
This balance creates a relatively stable region for spacecraft to reside, reducing fuel consumption. So it's kind of like a triangle,
and
but
Jupiter
for gravity.
caught up a ton of asteroids. They're called and they're floating around there, which are pretty cool. I think.
So couldn't we just harness some sort of meteoroid that's going by that has useful things on it?
I hope so. Oh, our
Like
next
metals?
war, we could. Oh, yes. Okay, that could be one of our episodes because there's what is it called? There's an asteroid out there that we're probably going to go to war over. It's like made of gold and platinum and more gold and more diamonds. Except some of the diamonds have mithril in them. It's crazy.
Huh. I think the diamonds, yeah. I just
And
feel like
rubies.
we should be harvesting things.
Yeah.
I'm concerned about space junk. And just the fact there's just essentially like a paint chip in space is a problem because when you're going so fast, small things at high speeds can cause damage. So we're like polluting the Earth. There's a bunch of stuff in gravity, in the Earth's gravitational field that just cause problems.
There's a
if
lot
we
of
want to
stuff
get
up
out.
there floating around. Huh.
What was your opinion on the recent the group of women astronauts like Katy
Oh.
Perry.
Well, I saw this is the thing that got to me is the media immediately tried to paint it to the public like, look, public, these are women. This represents women in space. Like the public are a bunch of dummies.
I think it was what it was. Wasn't marked as the first all-female space crew?
Oh, was it?
I don't know, but it essentially was just like a space tourism.
But
They
to
just
me-
put a bunch of female celebrities in a thing. None of them had anything. They just kind of went up into space and came back. There was
It
no-
seemed very elitist to me, and it seemed very patronizing to the public.
Well, then also the conspiracy theories came out that Katy Perry's hair wasn't fully, I don't know, gravity. It didn't look like it was gravity. So there's some conspiracies that maybe they didn't even go to space.
Well, they, if people, at this point, I think it's funny if people want to do that. If they want to, like, think everything's a conspiracy.
I think conspiracy theorists need a seat at the table for everything. Because I think if we've learned we do need what is the conspiracy theorist's take on any given situation, and then
But I think
work your way through
they should never be taken seriously. I mean, I think, no, they can have it. It's funny. But we got to stop it. We got to be like, okay, yeah, that's funny.
I think they should be always taken seriously. But we need to consider, because you need to have a rebuttal to the conspiracy.
But I would like those people not to vote. And it's what I want them to, if they really think that, and just, okay, fine. Because this idea of everything has to be, oh, look, what does the stupidest person here who doesn't know what the fuck is going on? What is their opinion? Like, no, my attitude is, it's a recipe for madness. What we're kind of dealing with.
I think there's a meme too that makes me think of essentially. Oh, here it is. Have you felt with this meme? This is an internet meme. Essentially shows like a degenerate person and then like some sort of sage that are on the
Yeah.
ends. And usually then there's like the average person in the middle. So essentially this has different notation. But essentially, it always shows that essentially really dumb people and really smart people will like agree on subjects.
Well, what was the one catchphrase I heard? And it's very true. Somebody said, when a wise man and a fool argue, no one can tell the difference.
Like this one. I don't have a
It's
plan on
true.
social media. I don't have a plan. And then the person in the middle. It's just a funny meme because I think, I don't know. How do you value everyone's opinion? I think it's important to know what the skeptics think. Because, skepticism is at the root of science, right? It was the people that were the conspiracy theorists that thought that the Earth wasn't at the center of the universe. And they ended up, because of their skepticism, were...
I don't know if they were conspiracy theorists. I think they were people who were looking at facts.
Well,
I know.
But at the time, right, when the Catholic Church was the holy source of knowledge, and they were spouting that the Earth was the center of the universe, and that was the accepted wisdom. At some point, the conspiracy theorists had the conspiracy that wasn't correct, and over time,
Well,
that
I
slowly
don't think they were
became
conspiracy theorists. The guy like Galileo observed something. He wasn't like, my God, they're keeping something away from me, and I'm this. He didn't even though he was very intelligent, I don't think he was. I think he was not anything on the level of what's going on the internet now,
Well, yeah,
or
I
other
think-
people who discovered things. I
Well,
don't
the
think.
problem now is that conspiracy. I think what's
Yeah.
the quote that a lie spreads 1,000 times faster or something than the truth.
Yeah.
So, I think it's important to have skeptics.
Conspiracies is fun. They're fun to talk to, and if you're at a bar, if you meet a young lady who believes in it, go along with it. That's fine. Or if you're in a party, that's fine. Don't be like me, because I'm become the unpopular guy.
I think
Talk about
anyone
conspiracies.
that is not a conspiracy theorist on any topic
Yeah.
is not a real person. I feel like we all have our own conspiracy.
Yeah.
You have to, because we're all a spectrum of ideas.
Well, I know there's
experiences.
I don't. I know there's different. There's a lot of things that turned out not to be a certain way.
But then,
But-
you also have a problem when a conspiracy can be tweeted and then that gets echoed and
Yeah.
reverberated on the internet, while the truth is much
Yeah.
slower.
And while people are dying of diseases that we've cured with vaccines, and now they're dying, so because they've it's just I don't know.
So we have 30 seconds here. So thank you, Nick's Rolled, for tuning
Nick.
in and your comments about kangaroo rats. And yeah, any viewers, we appreciate you tuning in. So drop a comment after the show. And yeah, let us know what you thought. And any closing bits of wisdom for our viewers?
You're not Galileo. Sorry.
You're not Galileo, but with AI, you can kind of be one. We're all becoming our own Galileos.
Yeah.
So thank you for tuning in. That was an episode of Small Talk with Matt and John.
Yeah.
And until next time, we will be fading to darkness now.
All right.